My name is James Wyman. I'm the principal timpanist of the BSO, and I joined in the fall of 2013. You know, I grew up in a small town in Northeast Ohio called Ashtabula, Ohio. It's not too far from Cleveland. It's sort of equidistant from Cleveland in Erie, Pennsylvania, and it's right on Lake Erie. It's gorgeous. So I kind of had an interesting college experience. So I did my undergrad at a school in Cleveland called Baldwin Wallace College. It's not a heavy orchestral percussion school. I actually didn't play any timpani there, really at all. I did more solo marimba, solo percussion, and a lot of non-Western hand drumming. Then I took a year off after I got my bachelor's, and I studied timpani with Paul Yancic, who's the timpanist in the Cleveland Orchestra. And then he got me sort of on that path to knowing this is what I want to do. And then I ended up doing my, my master's program in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon University under Tim Adams, who at the time was the principal timpanist in Pittsburgh. You know, when I was younger, timpani, it frightened me, kind of the same way that I see it frighten most of my students now. As a younger student, you know, and not coming up with a really heavy music background, you know, the town I grew up in wasn't known for, you know, shelling out great musicians. It's just not the thing there. So timpani to me was terrifying because one, you had to tune it and it had to be exact. And two, it's just, there was no hiding. It's just, you're it, and you're always in the middle there. So I took more of a liking to percussion, to playing. I loved mallet instruments. I still do. I mean, right behind my phone, I've got a 5-octave marimba sitting there that I love to play on, and it's always been the passion. And once I got to the point of taking auditions, I kind of realized that there's an awful lot you have to prepare from knowing all your snare drum, all your phone, some marimba solos, the bell excerpts, the tambourine, the triangle, the cymbals, the bass. I mean, it's just, the list goes on and on and on. Not to say that there's not as much, if not more, timpani literature, but it's you're stationary in the same place. And with percussion, there's just so many different sounds that you have to make, and you really do have to be proficient at everything. In timpani, I think I could just compartmentalize everything just a little bit easier, and I really excelled at timpani when I took that path much faster. One of the best parts about this instrument is the fact that I think, especially if it's done correctly, you have a certain amount of trust from your colleagues, and they rely on you for a number of things, whether it's pitch or obviously rhythm. You know, I think there. Well, I think about this story. When I first got in the orchestra, Jonathan Carney, he came up to me, and I had known Jonathan just maybe about a year or so before that from Fort Wayne. He came out and played solo with us, and he came up to me and he said, "You ever seen those big fire trucks with like the front half driver and then the back half driver?" And I said, "Yeah, I've seen those before." He goes, "So I'm kind of the guy in the front. You're the guy in the back there, and we have to steer this thing right. Otherwise, this whole thing could fall apart." So I've taken that into account pretty much my entire time here, that I'm constantly in contact with him, whether it's with his face or with his bow, that I have to steer the back half of the orchestra. And then on top of that, actually another story, these stories really shaped me as a musician. One thing that Marin said to me early on, she goes, "What I expect from you is to bring me endless amounts of color." And I ran with it. And I thought about all the different ways that I could make this instrument have a larger palette, whether it's different stick choices, studying the acoustics of the hall, where on the stage the drums speak the best, using different heads, using different mutes, all different sorts of things to try to really achieve as many colors as I could. So when in doing that, I think I can help to influence the orchestra to go a certain direction in terms of color. So this is my personal set of drums. I've got 5 set up in my basement here. starting with the largest on my right. I play a certain style called German system, which it's not all that common in the States. And really all it means, honestly, is that the big drum is on the right, which is sort of the opposite of everything else in life, like, you know, piano, marimba, xylophone. The European orchestras typically will have this system. Anyhow, so I have 5 drums ranging from large to the smallest. This one on my far left here is it's a piccolo timpani. It's just a little 20-inch guy. And this here, the largest drum, is a 32-inch drum. So I've got the 5 timpani. They are a type of timpani called balanced action timpani, meaning there's a big spring that's pre-tensioned underneath the drum, that the tension of the head has to match the tension of the spring, so that way I can get the same amount of notes, because there's no locking mechanism on the pedal. So if I let the pedal go, it's just floating there. Versus the drums that I have at work, it's a system called Dresden timpani, and there's a little ratchet and a clutch on the pedal. So no matter what, my pedal locks in place, and that pitch can never move. And to go back to answer your earlier question about the construction of some of this stuff. So a stick, it's kind of our go-to choice to change the color, due to the fact that there's 3 different parts of a stick that make up, you know, its characteristic of sound. So you could have the shaft or the handle of the stick. It could be a variety of different materials. It can be carbon fiber, it could be bamboo, it could be hickory, it could be birch, it could be a solid wood, it could be hand turned like on a lathe. Then you have the material, and you can see it a little better, say here and here, the core, which is exactly what's on the end of the stick. So this is a wood core, solid wood core. This is a hard felt core. So it's a little softer in sound, just a little less abrasive. And there's different sizes of these. You could have cork, or you could have leather, or you could have the flannel disc. So there's thousands of little flannel discs compressed. And then last, you could have the material, the wrap, the material that's around the core. So in this case, this is some felt from a pool table, or I could have, chamois cloth, which this is a bit of chamois cloth here. And you just wet it and dry it around it and sew it up. This is some American felt, or this is the soft poofy stuff is called German felt. So there's a pretty huge variety of sounds that we can get. And we actually have to rewrap and sew all these things ourselves. But it definitely is a skill that I think every young player has to learn how to do. The same as having to learn how to change your own heads, having to learn how to maintain your own drums and work on your own drums. Those are all very, very vital skills that I find that I teach all of my students. You've got to be able to do it all. And then once you know how to do this, then you can sort of cater your sticks to your sound. So for instance, when I got into the BSO, my profile of sticks were nothing like it is now. I originally played on a much lighter set of sticks. I liked thinner sounds. BSO is a big band. It's a big hall, and it's loud. We got loud brass, and it takes a lot of depth to fill the Meyerhoff. So all of my sticks had to get heavier, essentially. Not necessarily in sound, but in terms of weight. I had to have a little bit more substance to all my sticks. So I revamped my entire sound. So now when I wrap my sticks, I wrap them how I think they would sound the best in the hall. Whenever I go down and you see me tapping or my face is in the drum, I'm just trying to check for pitch. And oftentimes, you know, we have to do this while the music's already being played. And the challenging part a lot of times is, say, you know, and I have a tuning fork right here, I just hit it on my knee or hit it on my head or something like that. I have to ignore everything that I'm hearing all the same time as paying attention to where we are, you know, counting. Oftentimes I rarely count because I have to study the score so much so I don't count. Just because when I'm down there checking drums or doing things, it's just too easy to lose count in something like that, and to be unsure. So I never like to be in a situation where I'm unsure. You know, I'll hit the fork and then I'll get down low, and I'll do this out loud so you can hear. So again, here's my A, and then I'll tap the drum, and and I'll very slowly raise the pedal up to that pitch. You always want to start from the bottom up, just because of the way the tension of the head works. You need to set the tension. If you come in from the top down, oftentimes that pitch will move as you play it. Now, while this piece is going, I don't really have the liberty to do that slow. I have to do it quickly. Beethoven had this amazing way of writing timpani parts where we always felt rhythmically supportive to the orchestra, but he still gave us some sort of a role harmonically or sometimes even melodically, which was nice. Beethoven 4 was a really great moment when, you get various sections or various instruments in the orchestra to play the bum, 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 and then timpani gets that one solo, bum, 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 bum. And even though it's only 2 pitches, it's a solo melody line. And up until that point, there really weren't a whole lot of opportunities to do that. So as we progress in the Beethoven symphonies, the timpanist really starts to have a much larger role than timekeeper or, pitch guy or girl, sorry. In the ninth, especially, gosh, there's so many different opportunities for the timpanist to come out, to shine. The first movement alone, good grief, that's, that takes strength and endurance in itself. That's such a ride. Especially the end, with the funeral march, the coda, the first movement, and where timpani and trumpets, they have this kind of really soft but pronounced rhythmic part, and over top of the ascending and descending, sort of the death theme, the be da 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 da, and just to have this pace out so powerfully, and then return to the opening, and then the scherzo is just that opening alone, the da 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 da, who had done that? It was really remarkable. And much of that movement takes place just on the high F. I have an octave F, two Fs an octave apart, and most of it takes a lot of place on that high F, and somehow it's melodic on one note. And I don't understand how he was able to do that, but it's really quite remarkable writing. And then to sort of jump ahead, to go to the third movement, one again, to change pitches, to have B flat major, and that entire movement is so sweet, and it's subtle and it's beautiful. It's incredible. And then the instant that movement ends, I have to change both drums simultaneously really quick, and then it's like a punch in the face, from the end of the third to the ba 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 ba. I could have all the sticks in the world, and every conductor is going to say, just play wood. That's kind of the only choice in many Beethoven symphonies. So I will put the 2 Fs here on the center drums, and I'll tune out loud so you can hear. Go. And then one thing that I didn't actually speak about earlier, but it sort of goes back to that quality and the color thing. So these drums, they're quite ringy. They go on for a while, and with rhythmic passages, sometimes the ring really gets in the way. So it's pretty common that many timpanists will have some sort of set of mutes that they'll make for themselves or they can buy. So I made just a set of mutes out of like a suede material, and it's designed to sort of just take out the overtones. I don't want to adjust the pitch at all. So if you can still have that ringy sound in your mind, we'll see what this sounds like here. Much more dry. You still get the pitch. So just the opening of this movement. Now I'll skip ahead to really one of my favorite parts, where every few bars, timpani just has this outburst. It's like listen, I'm still here. You know, it's one of these moments where, here, I'll play it. Starts to die away until I sort of have to sneak back in. And then it becomes a little relentless.